Jonathan McCarthy here again with a new and exciting journey into some leadership insights. I've been talking a lot recently about the power of conversation, and I wanted to take that a little bit further and talk about really powerful practices for collaboration, really generating breakthrough results. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and decision making, and all of those kind of wrap up together, and really share some methodologies and practices. As I said, there's a magic of communication and action that takes place when you start using some of these approaches, and they're leadership capabilities to be used in everyday life, but really as well when you're trying to make a step change in an organization, in your school, in your team. These are some really powerful and yet very simple methodologies and approaches that we can work towards. So I may sound like a broken record, but I want to start with listening. I want to talk then about trust. Trust is really important. There's trust earned and there's trust granted, and I want to talk about the difference between those two things and the power of those two things. I want to talk about scale and how you operate, as an individual versus a team versus, an entire organization. I want to talk about making sure that you have perspective and point of view. I think that's a really powerful and simple thing as well. I mentioned already that one of the things we're going to focus in this group of leadership insight discussions is decision-making models and when to use the right one. And that really leads us into a discussion around alignment and agreement. They are two very different things that people often confuse. How do we come to alignment? How do we come to agreement? What's the difference between the two? And so I think we probably have a series of 4 or 5 posts just to try to keep them again in bite-sized chunks. And this first one, I thought I'd start off on one of my favorite topics of listening. So there's 2 types of listening. Listening is an enormously important part of being a leader and being a team member. People often focus on their speaking ability, believing that good speaking equals good communication. It's important, and it's necessary, but the ability to listen is equally, if not more important. I think probably more important. And it's the kind of quality of listening that really matters. We have 2 types of listening in our human system. What we call automatic listening. Automatic listening, as we do normally, we're looking to see if we agree with what's being said. We're listening from history. We're listening with all of our paradigms in place. We're trying to see if it fits with our personal purpose or our perspective or our opinion. And if you think about it, right, there's what's being said. If you're just automatically listening, right, you're assessing, you're making it personal. Well, I don't agree with that. That doesn't kind of suit me and my purpose. You might be resigning. Well, that's never going to work, right? Or I already know that. Or, is this going to make me look good, right? And you're already interacting with what's being said, right? And the worst kind of automatic listening is you're actually switching off and not even paying attention to what's being said. And instead you've already come to your conclusion that what's being said is of no value, and so you're just thinking about, what's coming next in your day. The power of listening is when we really apply what we call generous listening. Listening generously means keeping your mind completely open to the possibilities, not prejudging, not listening from the past, not bringing your paradigms, your opinions into what it is that you're listening to. You can bring those afterwards, but it's not it's like bringing a different attitude to what people say. It's not active listening or repeating back what you heard to check for comprehension. It's more than that. It means that you listen for what the person speaking really wants to portray, what they really want to contribute, and what hits as his or her ideas, and what will that provide you or the team. So when you're generous listening, you're listening actively, but you're listening for what would this allow for? How would we benefit from this? What would this build? What could my contribution be? What might my commitment be? And most importantly, what's possible as a result of what's being said? And again, we're leaving behind assessments, being resigned to the fact that this is not something you're interested in, not jumping to the conclusion that it's something you already know, not making it personal. And there's a couple of ways in which, there's some questions that you can kind of assess around automatic versus generous listening. Automatic questions would be listening from history. So, well, how is that going to work? Or why is that important? Or does this fit or not fit with what I know? Or, I agree or I don't, or I disagree. Even that, even just assuming that you agree immediately is automatic listening. Do you believe it or not believe it? Does it make sense or does it not make sense? If you're having those things going on in your head, that's just automatic listening, and it's not going to create breakthrough results. It's not going to generate possibility. The questions in your mind when you are generously listening is you're listening for the future. So listening intently, but still asking, so what would this allow for? What could we build with that? What's the possibility that could be the outcome of what they're speaking about? What could this provide? What do we see? What do they see? We'll talk about the difference between that again when we talk about perspective. And how could we benefit? And also, what could my contribution be, or what should I commit to? That's generous listening questions that should be going on. And if you catch yourself in the middle of a conversation that one of your team members believes is important, and you find that you're listening from history and you're doing that automatic listening, stop yourself and consciously move towards generous listening. Once this becomes an automatic way in which you work, the power of that potential is enormous. So that's it for today. And next week, I'm going to talk about the difference between trust granted and trust earned. And that's another really interesting topic. So as always, thanks. Hit share, hit like, hit subscribe, give me some feedback. Tell me if this is, and put it into practice and tell me if it's making a difference. Okay. And thanks for now.